Welcome to Roadcase, the podcast that explores the live music experience. Thanks for joining us. I'm your host, Josh Rosenberg, and I'll be taking you on a journey through in-depth interviews with performers and key people in the industry to explore the magic of live music, how it can be totally transformative for both fans and performers, and we'll look at how they take it all out on the road. It's going to be a great ride, so here we go. Welcome back to Roadcase, second episode of the week. This is Josh Rosenberg. I'm super psyched to be here. Thanks again for joining me. We got lots of great episodes rolling out. I can't wait for you to hear them. I really know that you'll like them. And while I got you here, I want to really encourage everyone to get involved with Roadcase. Let me know what you think. Send comments, questions, or just say hi, suggest a guest. My email is info@roadcasepod.com. Contact me through the socials, Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. We're at Roadcase Pod. And if you would like to and are able to support the podcast through Patreon, we're at patreon.com/roadcasepod. And of course, you can listen to this podcast on your favorite listening platform. So today for the second episode of Roadcase, I'd like to introduce Julia Steiner. Julia is a lead vocalist and plays guitar in the band Ratboys. She's from Louisville, Kentucky, so we talked a little bit about another band from Louisville, My Morning Jacket, which I always love doing. And she explains how Jacket and that band's approach influenced Julia as a role model for a hometown band. Ratboys is from Chicago, which is how I heard of them. I learned about them recently during this pandemic period. And this is a band that's faced some significant changes, as have all bands during this period of tour stoppage since the pandemic hit this country back in March. Ratboys had released an album back in February called Printer's Devil, and subsequent to that, they were going to tour. They were hitting South by Southwest and the Treefort Festival, all of which was canceled. So they had to retrench and regroup like every other band that was stuck in that same type of position when touring stopped in this country. And they started using the Twitch platform, and they created this really unique approach to live streaming. They are in the chat rooms chatting with their fans, and their fans are chatting with them. They even did a 25-hour Twitch telethon that also benefited some national and local charitable organizations. I love Ratboys and their songs. Their music has a certain hard edge, and Julia's vocals are simply gorgeous. But I mostly love their desire to tour, and in absence of that right now, they've had this remarkable determination to connect with their fans in new and creative ways. Julia is super open and honest, and she is really reflective in this interview, and I really loved talking with her, and I learned a lot about her. I know you'll enjoy this interview with Julia Steiner on Roadcase, so here we go. Hey, Julia, how are you? Good to see you. Thanks for joining Roadcase.
Hey, thanks so much for having me. I'm good. How are you?
I'm great. Thanks. So we're both here in Chicago today on this rather cold, not so ominous day because it's like a beautiful day out, but you know, we're always thinking in the back of our mind that, oh shit, here comes winter, but we won't go into that subject right now.
Yeah, let's not.
All right, we'll get into other things. So you grew up in Louisville.
Yep, that's correct.
Right? Yeah. Mm-hmm. And what was that like in terms of kind of musical upbringing? Did you always know you wanted to be a musician?
Not really. I mean, I had a great time growing up there, though. Louisville's kind of a perfect size city, in my opinion. It's a lot smaller than Chicago, but it's definitely not like a small town, you know, like there's a lot of things to do and bands would come through. So I got to like go to shows when I was younger. The all ages scene wasn't like huge or anything, but there's one club in town called Headliners that would do all ages shows from time to time, or at least like 16 and up. And so once I could drive, like once I was in high school, I was definitely just falling in love with going to shows. And there we had a really good record store when I was growing up called Ear Ecstasy,
Oh
which
yeah,
was
I've heard of
actually,
that. Uh-huh.
oh my God, it was like actually like a paradise. It was really big and really like just welcoming, and like it was a
Yeah,
good
yeah.
vibe in there. So I would go there a lot. But
I've seen that store portrayed on a documentary that My Morning Jacket did about
oh
Louisville when they played at the Yum Center,
yeah.
and had I think it was a Louisville kids choir
Oh,
or
the choir,
orchestra.
yeah.
No, it was the orchestra or something like that
Okay.
played together with them. So they focused a lot on Louisville, and they mentioned they
Yeah.
talked about Ear Ecstasy a ton. Didn't
Yeah.
it moved from downtown to like another location or something?
Kinda. Yeah, it
Yeah,
moved down the street. That was kinda the last gasp. It was actually right when I left for college the first summer that I came back, it had moved to another location, and then by the next summer, it had closed, unfortunately,
right.
which is, like, such a tragedy. But yeah, My Morning
Yeah,
Jacket was,
totally.
like, the big hometown heroes. I still remember at because 'cause they're from Louisville, and, they, kind of made it big, right around the time that I was starting to get into music, and so, like, right around, like, 2005, and yeah, I remember buying, like, a copy of Paste magazine at Ear Ecstasy where they were on the cover, and back then it came with a CD, like a sampler CD,
Yeah,
and one of their songs was on there, and it was just, like, such a I don't know, it was such an exciting time in my life. I'm sure it was for people at a different age also living in the city then, but it felt like a lot was going on, and my brain was just, like, soaking up all this new information and art, and I was loving it, but I didn't really think I would, start playing music, like, even by myself. I kind of was just I was doing it very privately in my bedroom and stuff. I was pretty focused on becoming, like, a journalist, or I've always really liked sports, and so that was kinda like my first big dream was to be, like a sports reporter,
oh,
a
seriously,
spec
what did you play?
yeah. I didn't really play sports. I was watching. I played,
Fair,
like,
that's
flag
fair.
football growing up. Yeah, I've always been a big football, like, American football fan, the
Yeah,
sport. I didn't really know the band, but, yeah, so, like, I was huge into the NFL growing up and college football, and so
your favorite team?
I'm a
What's the
Steelers
closest?
fan.
Oh, okay. Oh, yeah, I saw you with a Steelers hat. I'm like, "Oh, is that, like, the closest town to Louisville?" That it was
It's
in one of your
not.
videos, you had a Steelers cap on, right?
Yeah, so we actually are Louisville's kind of equidistant between 3 NFL teams, Nashville, the Colts in Indianapolis, and the
Yeah,
Bengals.
yeah.
The Bengals are technically the closest, but that's actually the one NFL game I went to ever was a Bengals game with my uncle, but my grandpa's from Pittsburgh, and he kind of raised me to root for the Steelers,
Yeah, yeah.
so
You gotta have
I
some kind of
always
emotional connection there.
exactly, yeah, so
He
that was my big
he told
thing.
you about the old steel curtain in the '70s and Terry
Yeah, oh yeah,
Bradshaw and yeah,
mhm,
that
and
was like
actually
I grew up in LA and I loved that team, so they were very
nice.
charismatic and had, like, a lot of huge names.
Totally. Yeah, Jerome Bettis was my favorite player growing
Oh,
up,
there you go. That was a little
'cause
bit later,
he
but
yeah, that was, like, right, it was a golden age, though, because they won the Super Bowl, and it was,
oh,
like
yeah,
growing up,
totally.
that was so much fun to watch, but
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
music was, like, the other big thing I was into, and
Yeah,
wasn't ever really planning on, like, performing much until a little bit later, but
right.
yeah.
And you went to, but kind of, not that I wanna talk about My Morning Jacket a ton,
Oh,
but,
I'd love to. They're one of my favorites.
oh, I love them.
Me too.
But, having that kinda model, was that kind of important to you,
Yeah.
as having a hometown band model? Was that instrumental to you? Not to mix metaphors, but
Yeah, that's a good one. No, yeah, I definitely the main thing that I took away from just watching their career develop was they said, I think in that Paste magazine piece this was right after, I think Evil Urges had come out in 2006 or 2000.
Z maybe, I think, at that time.
Okay, yeah, it's one of those, and they
Uh-huh.
were just talking about how, they at that time, they were in their late 20s, maybe early 30s, and they were talking about how if they would've received this level of attention when they were in their early 20s just starting out, they probably wouldn't have been able to handle it,
Mm,
and they were talking about how, like, slowly achieving success, like a gradual climb, and, uh, creating something that's, like, a little bit more sustainable, like, through touring and, just repeated, writing lots of songs and
yeah.
keep putting out albums. They said that that really helped them like be able to keep doing what they're doing and handle
Hmm.
like the attention that they were getting. And so I don't know if I really like explicitly bought into that or if it just kind of stuck in the back of my mind because like we didn't as far like I met Dave and we started this band when we were both 18, but we didn't really start touring until we were 22. Like we kind of took it slow over the years, and I'm definitely bought into that idea now that it's a good thing at least for us to follow that model to, you know, kind of take our time and not go after any like cash grabs or not like try to rush things for the sake of getting big quickly or anything cuz
Yeah.
that's just not like it's not a realistic or, you know, maybe not as rewarding, although I
Well,
wouldn't know the other way.
is it a mindset, or are people throwing you offers to do things that you've
I was
actually
just gonna
consciously
say,
that
not really.
not that it's a
It's
bad, no, there's no judgment behind that. I'm just kind of wondering, like, what have you had turning points where you're like, no, we don't want to go in that direction?
yeah, it's not really a mindset of like saying no to things. It's more like this is what we want to do. So like we do want to keep touring and we do want to like keep putting out albums. You know, even if the previous album wasn't some huge overnight success, we weren't looking for it to be, you know,
Right.
we're gonna our expectations are kind of grounded.
Yeah.
So
Well,
that's the
realistic expectations of
right.
what you think is possible and
Yeah.
where you believe you can go, really, and
Mhm.
then not expecting some like having an expectation of a certain level of success can often lead to disappointment,
Totally.
uh, and is not really is not a reflection of where you really are, really. I mean, it's about
Totally.
kind of personal expression. Um, so how's that guided you over the last couple of years, into into the Printer's Devil, which you guys released, I think, in February,
Yeah.
earlier this year? Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah,
Yeah.
it came out, at the end of February, so, like, a couple weeks before everything kind of shut down because of COVID,
Yeah. Yeah.
so we weren't really anticipating what was about to happen, but,
No, I don't think
no one
anyone was,
was.
right? Yeah.
Yeah, right.
That's the
But,
understatement of it.
truly, yeah. Yeah, I think the main way we've kind of tried to stick to that is just, you know, like, doing what we can because we love it and continuing to tour, as much as possible and, you know, put that grind in and make connections with people face to face and just try to be as, like, authentic and honest as we can with what we're doing.
Yeah. I think that
It's
comes across a ton in what you've been doing, frankly.
Thank you. Yeah, another thing that came to mind with my morning jacket, because I moved to Chicago, in 2014, so I haven't lived in Louisville since I moved away when I was 18, so, like, it's been 10 years, but, I really do appreciate how, like, supported they are there, like, they're definitely, you know, in the community as far as when they play shows in Louisville, everyone shows up, like,
Oh, yeah, for
they were
sure.
s they're so involved with the record store scene and, like, the local venues, they played a lot of benefits to, like, help local organizations and things, like, that's definitely a model for, like, how I feel like a band should be in a community, like, a good neighbor to everyone else.
Yeah,
So
respecting their roots, it's certainly because
exactly.
that kinda helped you looking at that model and knowing
Yeah.
that there's a band out there that's had, like, a great level of success, but from Louisville, so it kind of becomes more personal.
Yeah, totally, and yeah, it makes me want to achieve, you know, it's as you get as much as you give in that way, like, so we try to be very, you know, conscientious, like, citizens in the Chicago music community,
Yeah,
uh,
yeah.
you know, it not that you're doing it for a payoff, but it works out because you end up making friends and, you know, just having a good, you know, a good place and being able to lean on people and just being able to just be a part of the music community here is really cool. So we're
How
ha
did that kinda start how did that start out? Because I've also, I've heard great things about how you're really liked in the community and you've supported Chicago community, and clearly you have that mindset. How did that sort of start, and how does that kind of come out in what you've done so far? I know you've done there was a Twitch recently, Twitch Telethon, where you also
okay.
supported Girls Rock Chicago and a couple other causes. Um,
Yeah.
Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I remember well, we first started even before any of us lived here, we, started playing shows here. Dave and Sean are both from the south suburbs, and so they kind of had an idea of, like, where to play or, like, who to ask to play shows and stuff, so, I remember I wasn't calling, but, like, cold calling, like, emailing people, at venues just asking if we could politely asking if we could play a show and being, like, shocked when people were like, "Sure." I assume things like that, COVID notwithstanding, like, things like that still happen, it's just a matter of putting yourself out there and not being an asshole, so,
And
we yeah, we, like
you started to do that right when you got to Chicago? Like what time
yeah.
frame was that, just to put it in perspective?
Yeah, this was we played a couple shows in Chicago in, like, 2012-ish, but they weren't ones
Mhm.
that we had booked. That was, like, with friends back at, like, Township, and places like that and, like, DIY spaces, but then I moved here in 2014, and I remember for the first 4 months that I lived here, I was working, like, in my not talking crap, but it was kinda like a boring office job, downtown, and I would spend a lot of
You don't have
my
to preface that, you can say that.
I don't know if anyone from that company will be ever listening to
Well,
this, probably not, but,
it was boring for you, that's all we know.
it was boring, yeah, but I, would spend a lot of my time on the clock, like, just trying to book shows. So, yeah, I remember I emailed, like, the people at Kickstand at Beat Kitchen and Subterranean that fall in
Mhm.
2014, and yeah, Subterranean this was upstairs, they didn't have the downstairs, like, open yet for shows,
Right.
at least not for, like, rock shows, but so, yeah, they were like, "Sure, we can do your 4-band all local bill," like, you know, they just, like I don't know if it was just they had a night open or they were just down to take a chance on a band that, like, no one knew, but
Yeah.
yeah,
Did
they
you
let us
do
do
you
it.
send them like a demo or a link or something to anything, or
Yeah,
they just like, "Yeah, come on down?"
yeah, we had a few songs up on Bandcamp and stuff, and a couple of the other bands were more, like, established than us at that point. I think
Mhm.
Kitty Hawk was on the bill, they had, like, a record out, and that band Monobody had just started,
Mhm.
playing shows, and they were, like, kind of the new hot band in Chicago, and they agreed to play, and so yeah, that was, like, the first time that I booked a show in Chicago, and I was so, like, so thrilled that we were even just, like, allowed to do that. So,
Yeah.
that was
So
really awesome, and got a bunch of our friends to come, and it was cool.
yeah, so it really was kind of a DIY sort of scenario, and that
Mhm.
how was that kinda instrumental in you, like, supporting Chicago bands or supporting the Chicago scene and feeling like you wanted to give back? Were there other examples that happened like that, and what did that evolution look like?
Yeah, I think so. It was mostly we never I never, like, lived in a DIY space or anything, so we couldn't and none of us did, Dave and well, actually, Marcus, our drummer, lived in a DIY space called it used to be called Summer Camp, but now it's called Margaritaville. It's just like a basement, like a house show house, but,
Right.
so he would host shows. I don't know if we, like, gave back in any way, but we just tried to go to shows as much as we could and, support bands that were doing awesome stuff and, host bands whenever we could, like, on when they were on tour, we would either host them in my tiny apartment or at Dave's parents' house in the burbs, or at least try to hook them up with a place to stay, like, just
Yeah,
trying
yeah.
to look out for people and try to make the experience here a good one when touring bands would come through. Because Chicago, it doesn't get a bad rap, but, it's just a big kind of intimidating city, so it's nice to be able to show people that there's, like, a welcoming community of showgoers here.
Yeah, I mean, I've heard both things. I've heard, like, it's a good community for bands, but I've also heard that bands can be like competitive or not play well
Mm.
together, for example. Have you seen examples of that, or what's
Not really. To be honest, um we might have just gotten lucky and not really been around too much of that. I mean, to be honest though, there's so many kind of like micro uh not scenes, but just like little communities within the city that like I don't even know half of the band, like
right?
a majority of the bands that play music in Chicago, I don't know, obviously, and, like,
Yeah, yeah,
for an
yeah, yeah.
I
I mean,
only
it's a
ever
huge.
lived on the yeah, I mean, I only ever lived on the north side of the city, and so I know there was, like, a really cool thing going on in Pilsen and Bridgeport and stuff, and
Mhm.
I didn't go to many of those shows at all, and I mean, like, I got kind of lucky too because Dave and Sean both came from this scene in the south suburbs, like in Oak Forest and even Lansing, Illinois, and like with Namdi and all the stuff that he was doing down there before he moved to the city. That was like a built-in just like group of bands and artists who were doing really cool stuff who eventually moved to the city. So we kind of had like a built-in network
Right.
before
Right.
we got started here. So that was just total like happenstance and luck, like right place at the right time type
Yeah.
kind of
Yeah.
thing.
And so you went to Notre Dame, and then you met Dave, who's the
Yeah.
guitarist there, right? Like right off the
Mhm.
bat or something.
Yep.
Like in orientation there, or something like that. And you guys connected on a music level, and then just sort of stuck it out there for a while.
Yep. That's exactly right. Yeah, we met yeah, it was either like the first or the second day. It was during freshman orientation. Um And
Yeah.
yeah, there aren't a ton of people at Notre Dame who are, like, super like, there are a lot of people who listen to music, but there aren't a ton of people where that's, like, one of the top priorities or, like, just the main thing, and so we kind of bonded quickly over that, just having that in common, and we liked a lot of the same bands, but also, like, he knew a lot of bands that I didn't know and vice versa, so we kind of filled in the gaps for each
Yeah.
other, and um, it was really cool. I mean, I had never met anyone who played music. Like, all of my high school friends, like, we all listened to a lot of the same music and stuff, but, I was the only one who, like, played an instrument or anything, so it was
Right.
really cool to meet Dave 'cause, I had never, like, jammed with anyone before, so that was a whole new experience.
Had you been playing guitar before then?
Yeah, I started playing guitar when I was, like, 14,
Uh-huh.
so, like, all during high school I played, but it was all by myself, and it was all, acoustic guitar, so I didn't even think about playing electric guitar until, like, years later after like, right around the time that college was ending and we, were just gonna start recording more music,
Right.
took the plunge and bought an electric guitar, so
There you go. There
that was
you go.
exciting.
Yeah. Um, so yeah, this COVID thing, I mean, you guys put out that album, the latest album right at the end of February, just before COVID hit. You know, had
Yeah.
a tour plan. I don't want to like bring up all kinds of shitty feelings and stuff, but
Oh,
just to
it's
sort
okay.
of just to sort of put it in perspective and how I've looked at what you have done and since then and have a ton of respect for just powering down and just or powering through this period, which clearly could have been like it was obviously disappointing for anybody.
Yeah.
How'd you feel when that first occurred, and what was the turning point? Because you guys have done some great things since then, and really like to get in front of your fans, and have found that niche. And I just kind of wanted to explore that with you and what your mindset was to start that out.
Totally. Yeah, definitely. It's kind of a crazy timeline, like, we put out Printer Stuffle on the 28th of February, and then, that next week, I will never I've talked about this before, but it's seriously still so fresh in my mind. It was March 6th that South by Southwest was canceled, and
Yeah.
that was, like, a huge that was it was literally a week after our record came out, and I remember someone had messaged me, someone internationally, I think they live in the UK, had messaged the band on Facebook and was like, "What are the chances South by is gonna get canceled? You know, I'm thinking about, like, canceling my flight," and I was like, "It's not gonna get canceled, like, that will not happen." The city of Austin depends so heavily on this revenue, and
Little
it
did they know.
yeah, well, little did I know, no one knew, but
No,
I
yeah,
I remember the night after, our show at, Lincoln Hall, like, the night the record came out, we were at some bar and, just, like, celebrating or something, and, we were all talking because we had purchased flights to go to Europe in May and June, and we were like, "Oh, we might have to, like, cancel the Italy shows on the tour," because like, right around then, it was really bad in Italy, but we, like, didn't really know that it was gonna get
no,
bad
yeah,
everywhere,
yeah.
so anyways, yeah, so when South by got canceled on March 6th, we were all in our text group, like, freaking out, because it's
Fuck,
like,
right.
this is a huge deal because it's a domino effect. Like if that's canceled, then it felt immediately like everything else was kind of in
Yeah.
jeopardy.
Yeah.
But then, yeah, so like a week later on the 12th was the day that everything got crazy. Like Tom Hanks got coronavirus, the
Yeah.
NBA shut down. It was all like on the same evening. It was so intense.
Yeah, I was at a show in, Covington, Kentucky at the Madison
Whoa.
Theater when my daughter texted me and said, "Tom Hanks has COVID." I was
Oh
at a
my
show.
god. What show?
I saw Pigeons Playing Ping Pong there when
Oh,
Goose opened up for them, just, and
that's cool.
I had been in Indianapolis the night before at the Hi-Fi to see Rookie with Twin Peaks.
Dang.
But
Got it in
yeah,
right at
so
the last
everyone's
minute.
oh yeah, last show. So what was the thought process? I mean, clearly you guys were super disappointed. I'm so sorry that that occurred to you guys. I mean, like to
Oh,
say
it's okay.
I'm sorry that COVID occurred. Uh,
Thank you. It's all
sounds
your
like
fault.
ridiculously trite thing to say at this point, but
No.
I mean, big picture, yeah, it's a global pandemic. Small picture, there's so many stories of many bands that have like just obviously to talk about that, what's gone on in the music industry. Um,
Yeah.
is really disappointing, and there's so many stories out there. I'm particularly interested in what your thought process was, and sort of clearly you decided not to just sit there and cry for 3 months. You turned it around. You had this tour planned, and that didn't happen, but you found ways to get in front of fans. Sort of, what was your mindset, and did you set out to do initially to kind of turn it all around for you guys?
Yeah. Well, I mean, the first mindset was relief that we weren't out on the road when all of this happened,
Mm,
because we were meant to be the first date of our tour was the 14th, and so everything got shut down 2 days before we were supposed to leave. And so we were just relieved that cuz for instance, our friends in Palehound and Adult Mom, who are both like New England bands,
mhm.
were in San Francisco when everything shut down, and so they had to drive all the way across the country,
Right.
to get home in the middle of this extremely stressful and, like, scary, dangerous
Yeah,
situation. So
disappointing time, yeah.
yeah, and, like, dealing with, yeah, all the disappointment and everything. So we were just I mean, we were, like, feeling for everyone who was, like, in a worse logistical situation than we were, because luckily we were just home. The only logistical problem that we had was we had all this frickin' merch, which you can see behind me, just piling up, because we had bought all this merch for tour, and so we
Which is all available
truthfully
on your website still, obviously.
yeah, well, yeah,
Let's say that really loud.
we're revamping our site right now to make it easier to buy, but,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, so we quickly posted that online. That was really helpful. People, like, bought that, which was cool, and then so that helped us out. At least it helped us pay for the merch that we had bought, but then, yeah,
Mhm,
I remember there were, like, a couple conversations at the very beginning of in the middle of March where, it was even before, like, the actual shutdown order was placed. I remember I got together with, Glenn, who runs Super Records here in Chicago, and a couple
mhm.
other artists, and we were just, like, brainstorming, and Glenn is, like, the man. He's just such a realist and knows what's going on kind of more than most, and so, I was saying, "This is really gonna fuck up the next 6 months, like, I don't know how we're gonna get what's gonna happen?" He's like, "No, like, the whole year is gone, like,
Yeah.
2020 is not happening," and I was like, "Whoa," like, I wasn't thinking about it like that, and so when he said that, I was like, "Oh, man, like, we might need to really invest in something, because like, a little, you know, putting your hand over the, like, water the leak or whatever, it's just gonna spring somewhere else. Like, we need to find, like, a solution that's gonna last or at least help make the days go by a little faster." So, yeah, it was between that conversation and then getting on a few calls with, like, there were some other artists who were thinking about maybe doing, like, a big virtual music festival.
Mhm.
We were just kind of brainstorming over, like, FaceTime and Zoom, like, in a couple group chats, like, what to do, and, uh, I had this little virtual tour idea because we were lucky enough to already own a green screen, a very small green screen,
Yeah.
but Sean, our bassist, had one already, and so the idea was to play in front of the green screen and just put a photo behind us that made it seem like we were playing in, like, some exotic, far-flung location, and we could
Right.
pretend we were on
Hey,
tour.
I always wanted to play on a beach in Thailand.
Yeah, right, I mean, that was the one rule of the idea is that we can only play where we've in, like, places that we've never played. So, it was meant to
Oh,
be kind
cool.
of, out there,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
yeah, I had mentioned it to, people on those group chats and, people were into it, but it was kind of clear that by the end of those chats, it was like, "Well, we're all kinda just gonna do our own thing because this is gonna last a long time." And so, um, kinda just took that idea and ran with it. We, like, ordered a couple webcams online, just, like,
Right.
cheap webcams and just Twitch seemed like a place to do things 'cause it seemed just, like, a little bit niche and, like, something we had never tried before, and it allows for a lot of, like, customization. You can, like, kind of make it look how you want, and
Right.
that was attractive because we had a lot of time on our hands, so we could kind of experiment and, like, learn how to make things look good.
Yeah.
Not saying that we've, you know,
That you've
like,
achieved
learned
that.
that
Come
much, yeah, but, like,
on.
it was at least fun to try, so,
Had you been
um
familiar with the Twitch format prior to that?
little bit. Dave is a huge fan of a Twitch channel called Salty Bet, which is it's extremely, extremely niche, but it's like, a computer simulator, like, battle like, basically a computer it's 24/7, it's always running, but it's a computer simulator that, like, takes 2, characters and has them, like, battle, and you place, fake bets on who you think is gonna win.
Sounds awesome.
It's really awesome, and that runs through Twitch.
'Cause it was
This
like a gaming platform first. I mean, I don't spend a ton
Yeah,
of time on Twitch, but I've spent more time recently because it's been such a popular interface.
yep.
And how talk about the ability to connect with your fans through Twitch. Was that a factor? Or did you just kind of start to interact with the fans because you were on that channel? But
Yeah, I got to do a couple live streams before we started doing shows on Twitch. Trying to remember, like, a few of them were on Instagram, a couple were on Facebook. It was all just me by myself playing in my room, so it wasn't very, didn't really wasn't I don't know if it was very interesting to look at or hear, but yeah, one of them was this app called Social Distance Party, which our friend Ryan was starting. He plays bass in Prawn, and, he's just, like, a really smart, web developer, and so
Mhm.
he started this app called Social Distance Party, which used Twitch to, like, facilitate the performances, and so he, like, invited me to do a session via that app, and that was kind of my first intro to Twitch, to at least how it worked, like, how to kinda get things set up,
Right.
and when we realized that it actually wasn't the learning curve is kind of steep, but just to get started is actually pretty easy, and so, uh having that kind of intro, like, out of the way made it seem like something we could try, at least, like, something we could handle
Yeah.
at a very, very beginner level, so
And so when you first started to do that, how was the reaction from fans, and did it achieve what were your goals with Twitch?
yeah. God, I don't even really know if we had any, like, we definitely didn't have any goals as far as, like, um, reaching certain what are the words? Like achievement levels. Like on Twitch, if you have a certain number of followers for a certain
Well,
period of time,
not in certain, like,
things like
number of
that. Yeah,
fans.
we
I'm not
didn't
asking,
care.
like, did you
Yeah,
how many people did you get? But,
right.
um, clearly, you had a goal of reaching your fans and
Sure.
being in front of the people that support you, right? I
Definitely.
mean, how did that evolve for you in Twitch, and were you able to kinda get to a place and be happy with that element of, at least if you're not gonna perform at a live venue, being in front of fans in a
Yeah.
live setting?
Yeah, totally. I mean, I wish I still had the first episode because we didn't know how to record it, so that one's lost. But yeah, that first weekend, the really from the second show, we kind of had things more in line. Like Sean, Sean, our bassist, has He does a really good job being, like, on the computer, like, facilitating the chat that's happening and, having that dynamic of him, you know, taking in what people are saying and telling it to us, and then we respond. Like, that was, really good from the beginning and felt just really, like, organic and fun. Like,
Yeah.
people we got lucky 'cause, I don't know if it's luck, I don't know if it's just the fact that people had a few people had bought tickets to see us on tour, and this was, like, the next best thing, but, yeah, from the beginning, like, we had a decent number of people who were at least intrigued about what we were doing, and so they would sign on and, you know, like, we can talk directly during the show, which is something you don't really get, like, you don't really have a back and forth when you're on stage at a traditional show unless
Yeah.
you ask for it, so,
Right, right, right.
um so that was really cool, and,
So how
I
so?
mean,
How was that different? Like you talk, like, just be able to talk between songs and then get feedback on the chat, for example, and
people
play
would
around
ask
with
us
that?
questions,
Oh,
like,
so you do
lots
kind
of
of like a Q&A? That's cool.
Q&A, lots of
Yeah.
Q&A. I already talk a lot between songs at shows, so that wasn't super different, but yeah, it was just more so just us kind of, like, it was less of a performance and it was more kind of us just, like, being ourselves on camera, like, just sharing space with people and hanging
Yeah.
out, for lack of a better word, and that it was just way less, formal than a regular show, and so
Yeah.
it
And
was
you could
kind of
hear
refresh
what people are saying, right? I
Yeah,
mean, not hear, but, like, read what people are saying. When it's
individual
like at a
comments.
show, someone's, like, yells out something, you're like, "What?"
Yeah,
You wanna respond, but, like, you're like, "Huh?" And then
and
someone else
it's
yells something different, you're like, "Oh, no, what?"
Yeah, no,
Just gets
definitely.
really
I mean,
weird.
one
So there are
aspect of Twitch that we were really stoked on and hoping would happen, is so I wanna shout out our friend Bailey White, who
Mhm.
streams Twitch. She's, like, a more traditional streamer because she streams video games, but she kind of, like, helped me get everything set up and, taught me a lot about, like, how Twitch works, and she told me that, every time she does this for a living, so, like,
Mhm.
she streams every day, and, she was telling me how, like, she would have a lot of the same people watching her every time, and that there would be kind of little inside jokes that would, like, develop within the community of people watching and,
Yeah.
like, little references, like, so it really became a community
Yeah, for sure.
rather than just, like, different people at every show, and so that's something that is a goal that we had that we thought if we could tap into something like that, that would be really cool, and it's kind of worked out, like, there's definitely the like, very silly little things that, happen every time we do a show now in the
Little
chat.
fun community chat things. I mean,
Mhm.
I've seen that. I've watched some in the jam band community or with some bands that I followed that do live streams and either on Twitch or other streaming services that,
Yeah.
in the chat, it's kind of fun just to, you see some of the same people and yeah, it becomes kind of a community, those sort of things that you miss. But as a performer, has this ability to go on these live streams sort of been more of a value added for you? Is it something that's new and fun that you didn't have before that you're kind of really appreciating now and are happy with?
Yeah, I mean, I it's hard to predict the future, but we've talked about hopefully continuing to do this in some way even when
Yeah.
real touring comes back, real touring, you know what I mean? Like, when we
Yeah,
can
yeah, yeah, yeah.
physically leave our house
Right,
again,
right.
because, yeah, I mean, it doesn't replace, a regular traditional in-person show, but it's like you said, it's almost something added. It's like, yeah, like an additional experience that's different enough that,
Mhm.
I think when regular shows return, it will be still something that maybe it'll be something that people miss weirdly, like, from the quarantine. I'm not sure, like, that's one thing that's been really interesting to think about, just in kind of a big picture way is, like, this whole pandemic is kind of forcing industries to innovate,
Yeah,
like, forcing people's hands, so, it'll be really interesting to see, like, what remains when everything's gone, but it might be like I said, it's, like, so different from a show. We think it would be cool to at least do something like this on a less regular base, like, on a, not as often. when we're
voluntarily
touring.
would be great instead of
Yeah,
something that you
totally.
like are like, we're not touring, so we got to do this because you want to be in front of your fans, right? But
Yeah,
if you can do it once in a while for kicks, because people are like, oh, well, oh,
totally.
let's get together. Oh, we'll have the gang's all here. Like they're in the
Yeah.
chat. Let's do this. Right.
Exactly, or even for special occasions like, the telethon that we got to do on Halloween was really cool, so maybe something that's themed around a holiday or some sort of, like, anniversary or
Yeah.
I don't know, you can make it special. The thing that's
Yeah.
hard is that, like, we don't really have the capability in our basement to make a full band performance sound amazing, and it's difficult to figure out where to put cameras, and we're limited by how long our cables are and so, like,
Right.
we're kind of limited to doing a smaller scale music production down here,
Hmm.
so it's definitely gonna be nice when we can play some real shows again to balance it out and, like, get that full band, like, turn up our amps and
So you've been doing it from your basement. So how was that? Would you like to do something more like the audio tree, like the stage stuff that you did?
yeah, that was awesome. We had God, as soon as that ended, that we got to do that back in July, and we were like, "Oh, man, like, I wish we could do that again." Like, we enjoyed it so much because we were
Just because it
very
was kind of like more like a real show.
yeah, and I mean, it sounded so good in there. I mean,
It
it
was from
sounded
Lincoln
good on
Hall, right?
yes, and
Yeah, yeah.
their whole crew is so good at what they do. It sounds really awesome, and we were just enjoying every second because we knew that that opportunity is, like, extremely rare nowadays. Like, no one else is really doing anything like that to our knowledge, at least here in town, so, we enjoyed it because that was, like, our
Yeah.
one
Well, you
time to
guys were
do
really
it.
fortunate to be able to at least play your record release show officially,
Oh,
right? I mean, I
yeah.
know a lot of bands that
Oh,
like
yeah.
I know a couple bands that were gonna release the album in March, and then all of a sudden they were,
Yeah,
"Oh, we got a record release show in mid-March," and that just like, you know, you had some momentum going into this whole thing,
definitely.
and then you've found this, the Twitch thing, like, really, like, a fun place for you guys to land, sounds like.
Thanks. Yeah, it was we did get lucky with the timing of that 'cause, uh, yeah, if we hadn't gotten to play those 2 shows, that would've been really tough,
Yeah. Well,
so
you certainly would have made it anyway. You made it work anyway for yourselves. What
thanks.
was this? What was the Halloween telethon? Talk to me a little bit about that and how you developed that, and how did that differ from other sort of Twitch shows that you did? And also, it was a 24-hour show. Is that true? Like a
25.
25, not 24. Okay,
There was a
just because you
daylight
want to.
savings time in there, so
Oh, was that the
we
daylight
fell
savings?
back an hour. Yeah,
That's funny, that's
it was
funny.
intense.
Okay, I wonder why it was 25, I just thought you're being goofy, and I said I'm sorry, I
No.
mistakenly said 24, I had 25 here.
No, yeah, it was our friend,
What was that all about?
yeah, well, so, I don't know, we had been doing the show, we had been getting pretty comfortable doing that. Each show is, a little over an hour. Um, the format was good, and through the show, we had experimented with having guests on the show, like live, call in, play songs, just chat,
Mhm,
whatever. And so by August, when we kind of took a little bit of time off to like write and stuff, we had about like 8 people on the show over the months, and the idea came into our head. I think first because we realized just looking at the calendar that Halloween was on a Saturday this year, which is just, like, so unfair because it's, like, the one year
that's
that
like the big party day, the one time.
yeah, like,
Once
it's, like,
every
the
7
one
year it's a 7-year event.
I know, and it was, like, a full moon. It was just, like, the vibiest, coolest Halloween ever, except no one can
Yeah,
leave their house if, you're
right.
being responsible. So that was just kind of a letdown, but then we realized, like, what if we could plan something that would provide some sort of like not outlet, but just like a destination or like a place for people to hang out that day to feel a little bit less alone or disconnected. And
Mhm.
then the idea was, well, what if we could like actually do some good like out of that situation, like, raise some money or just have some tangible impact rather than just, like putzing around on the internet. So
Yeah,
um I I don't know. Telethons, like, I don't know if this was like a, thing I realized. I don't know if it was a dream that I, like, said out loud ever, but it's definitely something I've been into. Like, growing up, there's a big telethon that happens in Louisville every year, um, and I really like Parks and Rec, that show, and they
Yeah.
do a telethon episode that's just hilarious. The idea of, like, staying up all night is insane, and so, yeah, like, back in August, this was, like, in August, we were, like just this idea kind of, like, crystallized very quickly, and it was like, "Well, we can't not do that. Like, we should try. We should at least try to do this now." And so it started with just reaching out to a bunch of bands that we knew. We started by reaching out to everyone who had come on the virtual tour show on Twitch, just to see if they would be interested. And after we got a few people who were like, "Yeah, like I would totally do this," um, then it kind of snowballed because we realized at first we thought it was 24 hours, and then our friend politely pointed out that we would be losing an hour, and so it became 25, and we were like, "Oh, no, we need to fill all this time," so then it turned
Well,
into
you've
kind
already
of
filled 24 hours, and so, like,
well,
1
we
hour
had
just
it.
felt super burdensome, 1 extra one.
Yeah. Well, yeah, at that point, we realized, like, how long like, just how big of a challenge this actually was 'cause, uh, we had a bunch
I
of
can do
live guests.
24, but 25 is gonna put me over the edge.
It really, like something snapped into focus there where we were like, "Oh boy, like, this is intense," and so we started reaching out to a bunch of bands and asking if they would do pre-recorded sets so that we could, like, really fill the time, and so, yeah, it just turned into a whole thing, and it was really fun, like, it was super Sean and I are both Sean used to work for a radio show, and he has a lot of experience as, like, a producer, of a live show, and
Mhm.
I well, am just super type A, but also just kind of have experience, like, planning, uh, a lot of moving parts on tour and just events and stuff that I've planned in the past, so it turned into this super, like, um, you know, every 15 minutes was, like, scripted and choreographed, and so we had, like once we got started, it kind of worked because we just, didn't have any dead space, like, we had a plan
Wow,
for
that's
the whole
impressive
time.
for that long, yeah.
I mean, don't get me wrong, a lot of the stuff that we planned, especially in the middle of the night, was, like, incredibly stupid, but it was really fun, and
But it was
people
planned incredibly stupid stuff.
yeah, exactly. That's the key.
And did you
So
guys sleep? I'm just curious.
no, no.
Oh, wow,
There was one
okay.
moment where Marcus got caught, his eyes were drooping a little bit at
Oh,
around
yeah,
5
for
in the
sure.
morning, but,
Right. Drummers
no, we
tend to
s
do that.
the chat, called him out, so,
There you go.
yeah. Yeah, we stayed up and
So how
we
was
slept
fan
after.
support during that time?
It was great. We had I mean, God, we once we decided we were doing this, we were like, "Okay, like, we gotta really go for it," we can't
Yeah,
just, like,
for
half-ass
sure.
this, so
Gotta go all in, commitment.
yeah, we promoted it a lot, like, probably more than people wanted to see, but it was good because yeah, we got a bunch of people to watch, and a lot of people tuned in, like, during certain times for the bands that they wanted to see, and so that was cool, and then,
Yeah.
there were a handful of people who we knew already who had, like, been in the chat all year with us, who, like, stayed up the entire time with us, which was insane, so that was really cool, and I mean, everyone raised all this money for the Equal Justice Initiative and Girls Rock. We didn't donate any we just facilitated the
Donate
event
the
where people
donation,
donated.
like yeah,
Right.
and did Twitch have that, or did you work with people in those
We
organizations to
we used a third-party site, it's called Give Butter. It's actually really good. I would suggest anyone who's attempting to do some sort of online fundraiser,
Yeah,
it's good because they don't take a cut, like PayPal and, Stripe and others. I don't remember the other options we had, but they all kind of take a bigger cut. So yeah, it worked out because we wanted to do 2 organizations that were equally important but different just to kind of widen the scope of, uh, you know, like, who was benefiting here,
yeah,
so
yeah.
it worked out because we were able to collect the money and then split it in half and then donate it personally to
Do you wanna talk a little bit about what Girls Rock Chicago does?
oh, yeah, yeah, so Girls Rock Chicago is a camp, this year it's like a virtual camp, but usually it's in person where they bring together young girls and trans youth from the area and basically teach them how to rock, like how to play instruments, how to write songs, how to be in a band together and like communicate, uh, you
Yeah,
know,
right on.
what they want and how they're feeling and just teaching like self empowerment. It's really cool. We've been lucky enough to play with like a few girls rock bands. What's really cool is, the groups that come out of that, they play shows like in the program at the end, but then a lot of them stay together. Like we have friends who their band started as a girls rock band.
Hmm.
It's so cool, and so we've gotten to like see that program in action a few times on tour across the country because there's camps pretty much everywhere, like in a lot of cities. So it was really cool to.
So it's like girls rock where like in a different
Mhm.
city, and it's sort of like these organizations that bring kids together, girls that wouldn't necessarily have the resources to go to a camp and
Yeah,
that might have already prior music interest, but then
it's
they get
not. Yeah, it's not required, but
uh-huh.
yeah,
Well,
I think
some
they.
kind of interest in music probably would be a good
Right.
thing, I guess, right?
Yeah, yeah.
But
I
no,
meant there's no prior experience necessary, but yeah,
right, right.
it's all over the country. There's like I don't know the exact number, but in
Yeah.
almost every major, like in every major city and in almost, I think in every state. I don't know. All I know is that the one in Chicago does really good work, and we've gotten to play with them across the country, like in Pennsylvania and San Diego, and
Right.
it's always a really cool experience.
Oh, that's really cool. That's really cool. And
Yeah,
what's your connection with the Equal Justice Initiative that
yeah,
you
that
also supported them through donations,
right.
correct?
Yeah,
Right? Yeah.
I found out about them, from my mom, I believe. There's a Netflix documentary about the, founder of Equal Justice Initiative, and basically it's an organization that's based in Alabama, but that does work nationwide, so it's kind of like a more zoomed out, like, wider scope, than the Girls Rock Chicago. But yeah, they do a ton of work to promote racial justice in the US, basically trying to undo all of these uh, toxic and racist and uh, what's the word, like these systems that favor white people over black people, basically in the criminal
Yeah,
justice
yeah.
system and in the prison system. And so yeah, they on the ground they help people who have been wrongly convicted or who are currently being like in the legal system being tried for crimes they didn't commit. But then also they do a lot of work like building museums and educating the public. They publish a lot of like reports every year about um, the legacy and the history of
Mhm.
white supremacy in the U.S. And
Yeah.
it's really
And
important. Like they do so much work. So it was important for us to communicate what they do and what Girls Rock do, uh, accurately. And so
mhm.
I interviewed a person from each of those organizations, and we put those interviews on
Oh, that's
throughout the
great.
show so
Uh-huh.
that
Oh,
they
cool.
could explain what they do because I'm not nearly as articulate as they are, so.
Well, you're doing it you're definitely doing a great job. What was your I I would say there's probably there's a lot of agencies or groups that promote for promotion of justice for everyone. What's your personal connection to this that made you want to promote them on this on the telethon?
Yeah, it was mainly just, like, I was just so impressed about the scope of the work that they do. It's,
Mhm.
there are other organizations that we've supported this year that are, there are a lot of local organizations here in Chicago that we have supported and that we continue to try to advocate for and that we respect so much. And then, um, like around the country. But it was more so just being introduced to EJI and seeing how much they were doing and kind of how broad the work is that they're doing. It was extremely impressive. I think I don't remember if the museum. I believe it just opened right before the pandemic, but it's been on our list for a while of a place that we want to visit.
Yeah.
So it's just fascinating and like so awe-inspiring to see uh, everything they're doing because
Right.
it's kind of all of these different aims or challenges and they're tackling all of them.
Yeah,
It's
there's so
it's
much work
amazing.
to be done at this point.
Right. Because,
Yeah,
yeah, the
especially right
education
now.
and, like, the education aspect and the practical aspect of helping people now, like, the fact that
Right.
they can do both at the same time is,
Yeah,
I think,
education and
really
advocacy for
admirable.
sure, right?
Right. Exactly.
Um, how did doing this telethon and other things on Twitch, like clearly you went in with one mindset of sort of pre-COVID fan interaction. How has that evolved through more connection with fans? Putting all, doing more videos or putting up a lot of your performances on YouTube and Twitch and having that kind of fan interaction. How has your view of those that support you and your fans and that interaction that you used to have on stage, how has that evolved over time during this fucked up period?
Yeah, yeah. I think it's just gotten stronger really. Like um all four of us are very down to earth, and we were already kind of we've always been open, like, at shows, wanting to meet people and wanting to uh make friends and, have relationships and get to go back to a city, and there's people there that we know from who have come to shows in the past. So yeah, it's kind of just been more getting to know people even better, and like having the opportunity to, like, these virtual shows are weirdly like so much more intimate than a regular show. So just
Interesting.
yeah, just getting to like be ourselves, and you know, whoever's watching is probably learning more about us, and then vice versa. I mean, especially when we launched a Patreon back in August,
Hmm.
um, which is something we really never planned on doing. But with touring gone, that's like all of our income, and so
Yeah.
it helps having the Patreon definitely like helps a little bit. But yeah, and part of that was launching this Discord server. Again, something I never knew about until this year, but it's basically like an app where you can start chat rooms and invite
Hmm.
people to join and talk about different things. And so for Patreon, that Discord is pretty active, and so we're in there all the time and just chatting. Our fans are becoming our friends at this point. Like, we are chatting about like sports and records that we like and whatever's going on. It's nice to just have a place to like stay connected with people and hang out. And you know, those lines being blurred a little bit this year has been uh, helpful for us. It just makes us feel more,
Yeah. Helpful. Like,
less
yeah.
alone.
Helpful. Like, talk about that a little bit. Like, how has that been apart from making you feel less alone, and what else has been kind of a factor with that?
Yeah, I think it just kind of makes us like, it gives us a better idea of who the people are who like what we're doing. At least the people who really like what we're doing, because those are the people on Patreon and in the Discord.
Hmm.
So yeah, it's really cool to just get to know those people better, because that's the main thing that brought us together, is that we're doing this thing that they enjoy, but we have so much more in common than that. And also
Right.
kind of getting a sense of what they want us to do, like things. That's actually something I'm gonna post on the Patreon soon. Is just like what should we do? Like, asking them for ideas of content that they would like us to make, or just it's nice to be able to have that direct connection with people, to be able
Yeah.
to get feedback in real time about, because I welcome that, like, criticism of, this thing that you're doing, I could give or take, like, that's fine, but you should do this instead, or just having
Right.
certain uh having like direct feedback like that is really nice. It helps us
It's super
uh
valuable, right?
grow as artists. Yeah, exactly.
And you said that you thought that these, a lot of these shows are almost more intimate than what
Oh
you had
yeah.
imagined. Like, in what ways?
Um, I mean, we just talk about, like, at the beginning of all the shows, we kind of just talk about like what we've been up to. And just throughout, like, we talk about our daily lives a lot, and just like sometimes people in the chat are it's usually pretty silly and lighthearted, but we ask people how they're doing, and we welcome answers to that question that aren't just like sunshine and daisies or whatever. So
Yeah.
sometimes we end up, having conversations about stuff that it's not heavier, but it definitely feels like more real.
Well, yeah,
And
it's more like, "How's everybody doing tonight?"
yeah, like, you
"Yay!"
ask that question and you don't get an answer, but when you ask
Right,
that question on Twitch or like on a virtual performance, you're
right.
getting individual answers that, like, you are coming from real human beings, and so it's like it's it feels good to be able to like respond to that and to have a dialogue about,
Yeah.
all the
Well,
weird, awful stuff that's going on this year.
yeah, totally. I mean, beyond having more personal connection with people, which everyone needs more personal connection these days,
Yeah.
um, has that brought you even closer to your fan base to develop those kind of deeper connections with even a couple different individuals? And I imagine it's dozens and dozens and hundreds of other individuals that you've been able to. I mean, I'm not. It's immaterial to put a number on it, but you've
Yeah.
been able to develop these deeper relationships or deeper connection with your fans. Like, how has that felt for you during this time?
It's felt really good. Yeah, I mean, it's just I feel like it's only gonna continue at this point. Hopefully, like when we can go back and play shows again, it'll be so awesome to have this shared experience under our belts and like uh seeing people in person is gonna feel so amazing because we've
Yeah.
kind of been developing relationships and just hanging out and being together, you know, being alone together for a long time this year. So it's felt really good and I'm hopeful that it'll yeah, like again, payoff is the wrong word, but I'm really excited to kind of, you know, get to see people again in the next stage and have all this to reminisce about cuz if we were all just on our own it's one thing when you're tweeting and you're on social media, but it's
Right.
nice to be actually talking with people or, you
Oh,
know,
yeah, yeah. I mean, this is
conversing
not
about
definitely not a replacement, but in
right.
lieu of being able to be face to face, I mean, there are some positives of what's going
Yeah,
on right now. I mean, there's definitely
definitely.
takeaways for sure, right?
Yeah, I mean,
So,
if this was like the '70s, we'd be dying, like, without the internet makes so much possible. It
yeah.
could be worse.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, there's always takeaways, right?
Yeah.
Um, well, with this time away from the road, have you guys been working on any new material or working on new songs? Talk about that a little bit. Like, what can the fans have to look forward to?
Yeah, yeah, it's funny, we recorded Printer's Devil quite a while ago, it's actually, like, 2 years ago right now,
Hmm.
November
Wow.
2018 was
Hmm.
the big chunk of recording, and so, um, we have kinda been working on new music, slowly but surely ever since then. I mean, kind of not in a formal way though, like, it's mainly just me, kind of writing skeletons of songs and not doing much with them, just kind of putting them away, to sit for a while, so, yeah, like, going into this year, had a pretty healthy, group of songs that we were planning to, work out as a full band eventually, and then once COVID happened, we suddenly had a lot more free time to do that, so, in addition to, like, the pre 2020 songs. Probably haven't been like super active writing songs during the quarantine time. Maybe like one a month or two a month or something as far as like things to that are actually like songs with, like not just little ideas or like, you know, random
Right.
things to try. So yeah, back in August, um we we went to Northern Michigan, uh, as a full band, to this house that my family owns. My uncles, and my dad own this house together, and it's where Dave and I had demoed a lot of our previous material, so it was
Hmm.
really cool to go up there with like, as the full band, and we were able to kind of set up all of our instruments and mic everything up at the same time so that we could, like, record all of our, rehearsals is the wrong word, but, like, as we were working things out, basically, like, all the development, we, like, recorded everything, and so
Yeah.
we were able to,
Was
like,
that
listen
different than how
back.
you done it before?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, in the
Yeah.
past, we had, Dave and I had demoed out our parts, and then we would bring it to Sean and Marcus, and, well, in the past, Dave had written the bass parts, so we just taught Sean the bass parts, and Marcus would kind of write his parts, but they weren't demoed. It was just like he would write them, and then we would go into the studio,
Hmm.
right after. And so this time, instead, we had all these voice memos, all these like acoustic recordings of the skeletons, like just me, and then we would work off of those and like kind of figure out the song together as a band, and then record the demos like as a full band in the same room.
Yeah.
We've never done that before, so that was really cool.
Yeah, yeah. But going to these houses, is that's kind of like a theme now? Because I know you recorded Printer's Devil at your like old childhood home that was to be sold or
Yeah,
something in Kentucky. So
yeah.
is that so like doing it in a house now, that's kind of a theme?
Yeah, well, so yeah, just the demos. So half of Printer's Devil we demoed up at this house in Michigan in the winter. It was really cool. It was really snowy and cold, because it's like super northern Michigan.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
then the other half, yeah, we went down to my parents' old house in Kentucky, which was like empty, and that was really cool. It was very like surreal and strange. Um, but yeah, it's kinda I just find it helpful, like well, for one thing, when we did those demo trips, we didn't have any other option, like, I lived in a really small apartment in Chicago with, like, no room or way to be loud, um, and then Dave lived with his parents, and we kind of had a practice space, but it was kind of like an awful place, and so we, like, we needed to go somewhere to record our demos, and so those 2 houses are just kind of like they were free and, like, isolated and no one was around, so, those were it kinda just happened that way, but then, yeah, we've just had such good times in this house up in Michigan and has really good juju, and, with, like, uh, the pandemic, we wanted to go somewhere where we wouldn't be around anyone, uh,
Yeah. Well, that
so
certainly accomplishes that to go way up north in Michigan.
totally, and I mean, like, we have this basement space now, but it's helpful, I think, to kind of if you go somewhere with the intention of doing something and you bring all your stuff, it kind of forces you to, like, pull your weight and, like, fulfill that end of the bargain and actually do it rather than if we set deadlines for ourselves at home, it's kinda harder to get things done because we just don't have as much, like as much of a time stamp, like a pressure to
Yeah,
finish
for
things.
sure.
Um,
Forced pressure is always good.
yeah.
Clearly you're excited to get back on the road at some point, right? I mean,
Oh, yeah.
had you toured a bunch before? Like, what was your touring life with, prior to COVID? When was the last time you guys
Yeah.
had been out on a big tour?
Um, well, it had actually been a while. Funny enough, like we kind of started touring in earnest back in 2015, which was when Dave graduated. He did a 5-year program, so there was a year there difference between us. But yeah, in 2015, we hit the road and we did a lot of DIY touring um, for like a year, and for a couple years. But eventually, we some of our friends started getting booking agents, and so they would invite us out on their tours, and so we started like opening for bigger bands. Relatively, and starting in 2017, we got hooked up with a booking agent, and so just really kept going. Like we between 2015 and July of 2019 last year, which is when we last toured, we hadn't been home for more than a month, like that whole time. So
Between
packed
when? 27.
2015 and 2019.
Wow.
Um, we
Hadn't been
toured a
home for
lot.
a month?
I mean, like we were home for like a month,
A month at
but
a
then we would
time.
leave again, right? And
Wow.
so it was crazy, but like we really, really liked it, and we're just having so much fun, and we've been very fortunate to, uh, you know, we haven't had any huge disasters on the road. We haven't gotten robbed. We haven't like gotten in a car wreck. Knock on wood, thank God.
Right.
Things went well enough that we were able to keep doing it, and so by July of last year, we just finished a 2-month tour with Pup, like one of the best bands in the world, and
Mhm.
we got asked to do a tour in the autumn time, and we knew this album was gonna come out in February, and we were like, "You know what? Maybe we should just stay home and, like, take some time off, like, rest, recuperate, get ready for next
Yeah.
year," because 2020 was, like, the year
Gonna
that
be a
we were gonna
banging year.
exactly. It
Totally.
it was
That's
like
right.
our big breakout year, and so we were like, "We need to stay home and, like, really prepare and, like, rehearse and get these new songs super tight and, like, plan out our merch super carefully and, like, figure out exactly how we wanted to, like, present ourselves on the road," because we've never, like, headlined before in clubs, like, selling tickets. When you are DIY touring, you're kind of headlining, but you're out on your own, but it's not the pressure of like,
Yeah.
delivering a certain experience every night. So
Right. Their
so we were excited.
expectations.
Exactly. So we were excited to try that. So we decided to take some time off to like
Right.
uh
Good thing
prepare
you
for that.
did, because you've had no time off now.
Exactly. It's so dark. Like, oh my god, the timing worked out in a crazy way.
Yeah,
But
okay.
so yeah, it's been July of last year was the last time that we toured. Um
Right.
so we definitely miss it, and we were so used to that lifestyle and just the daily grind of tour, so we can't wait to do it again.
Yeah, what was the thing you liked the most about it?
Um, well, for me,
Besides the music and the travel and the great bus road stop food, I mean, come on.
yeah, you can't beat that.
The hot
For
dogs on the, like, the rolling things, and yeah, those are
yeah,
great.
I won't deny, yeah. They have brats at a lot of these places, and I
Oh,
love
there
their
you go.
brat.
Yeah.
But, yeah, I mean, for me, I'm not sure what the guys would say, individually, but personally, I really enjoy the, uh, like, repetitious routine of tour. It's a really cool mix of feeling very free and spontaneous in some ways because you're literally having a new experience every day. You're going somewhere new. You're on a different stretch of road at a different time and seeing people out your window and things change. Even when you go to a city you've been to a million times, it's not always the same. And so you feel super free and impulsive in some ways, but also you have to be at a certain place at a certain time. You wake up largely at the same time every day and do the same things and fill up your
Yeah.
tank and sound check, and it's a very structured existence, and I really
But
miss that
yeah,
personally.
yeah, it's kinda like freedom to go where you're
Boxed
going,
boxed in.
but have, like, a super purpose. You guys were in a van?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, we were in a SUV
Oh, cool. Well,
with a
seems
trailer.
that sounds more comfortable than a van.
It's a great car. I'm really gonna be sad when that car dies because 'cause we've put a lot of miles on it, so
Who's the
we
b
are in
who's the driver? Who drives
me.
the majority? You are. Oh,
Yeah.
you're just the responsible adult of the group,
I
apparently.
just I'm really, I am really, like, a control freak, and I get anxious in the car if I'm not driving, so I like
Right.
to be behind the wheel, but yeah, it's fun, I like driving. It's, a calming and I'm just not looking at my phone, you know? I hate looking at my phone all the time, so
Yeah.
driving is a good distraction from your phone.
Yeah, totally. Well, that's great that you love touring, and, clearly your fans want you to get back on the road, and I'd love to see you guys perform, and,
Someday.
yeah, I'm really excited about all the stuff you're doing on Twitch, and you've really made the best of, of this situation, and, having more experience in being in front of your fans and interacting is never a bad thing.
Thanks, yeah, I agree. It's been fun. We've learned a lot, you know?
Yeah.
Learned a lot of random stuff I never was planning on trying, like video editing and, you know, Adobe After Effects and all these things that
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
are not about playing music, so it's cool.
Yeah, for sure. And I love your videos, by the way. Great stuff.
Oh,
What's the
thank you.
deal with the backwards one? I was like, I have to watch that a couple times.
Oh, man. Yeah, so that was just an idea. The song references the story of, my cat who passed away, and so the idea was kind of to show, um, what that process is like losing a pet, but also to show just how you can, like, lean on your friends in that experience, and the backwards idea, I mean, we were influenced. Kenna Hines made that video, and, when we were kind of brainstorming it, we talked a lot about, like, "The Scientist" by Coldplay, which is an
Mhm.
iconic music video in reverse.
Yeah.
Trying to think of others. That was, like, the main one because it's that video is, like, incredibly dramatic and, like, sad. So we were
The
kinda trying to hit.
scientist one? Yeah, I don't remember it.
Yes. It's yeah, there's
Um,
a car wreck, but
oh,
anyways,
shit. Well, and I
it was
was
hard
watching
to.
yours and I kept, like, thinking, like, I'd get involved in it, and then I would forget that it's rolling in reverse at certain moments, and
Yeah,
it was really interesting the way things would wouldn't necessarily say evolve, maybe like devolve, right? Because it's like
yeah.
to see how what happened before you're constantly
Right.
seeing what happened before. It's like it's really super interesting. But
Starts at the
um,
end.
yeah. And I love the Halloween House one. That's
Oh,
brilliant. The production was so fucking cool.
thank you.
It was
Yeah.
great.
Thank you. That was really fun. We on the telethon, we, aired this, like, retrospective, like, behind the scenes thing, because we had filmed that November of last year, so, it was, like, a year later, November 1st and 2nd, but, yeah, that
Yeah.
was really fun. Like, John and Jake, they go by the name Cool, that's their directing partnership. They are just, like, full of ideas, like, they came to us with that, kind of premise and the look, the, like, black and white, like, film noir. We would have
Yeah.
never thought to do something like that for that song, and, uh, they came with it, like, fully fleshed out, so, that was really fun to do.
Yeah. Well, you guys
So
still you guys killed it in it also, the 4 of you. It was great.
thanks.
It was
We tried
great.
we tried our best.
Really like it. Really like it. Well, I love everything that you're doing, Julia. It's been really cool to talk to you about everything that's been going on with you, and like you're just making the best of this environment, and the way you've gotten in front of fans and kind of changed your whole model for right now is like super inventive and admirable. And I'm really happy I got a chance to chat with you. And thanks for sharing all this stuff. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you so much for taking any interest and having me on. It was really fun to chat and just talk about
Yeah,
this crazy year. It's one for
absolutely.
the
And girls rock too.
Oh, absolutely. Girls Rock and UJI. Everyone, check out those orgs, and yeah, this is a year that we'll remember forever, so it's, uh it's nice to talk about it as it's happening because we can always
Yeah.
listen back to
Well,
this
because
and
when it's done, we're not gonna be, "Oh, I totally missed the pandemic."
Alright, it's gonna feel
Hey,
so good
listen,
to hit
every
the
time
road.
I get up from my couch when I'm watching a live stream to go to the bathroom, I'm grateful.
That's a silver lining, you know? Don't have to wait in line.
No
Could be
lines,
worse.
free access, and I get my spot back, which is
Yeah,
always
put your
nice. I
feet up.
mean, you big rock stars are up there on the stage, you don't have to worry about that, you know?
So
You know,
true.
if I'm down front in Lincoln Hall, it takes a while to get back up front.
That's true, you gotta elbow people out of the way, feel like a
I know.
jerk.
I know, really.
Oh, I'm in that
I'm losing
situation
those
when we go to
skills,
shows.
though. I'm losing those
Yeah.
skills. I'm gonna have to just go stand in a room for, like, 3 hours and
The
not be
key
able
to
to sit
Lincoln
down.
Hall is the balcony. You just gotta scope out that balcony spot, and then
Yeah,
you're
I just
you're
like
good.
being close to the action.
Fair enough,
I
fair
mean,
enough.
well, fair, in Lincoln Hall, you're pretty close to the action, but I don't like that angle of looking down on things.
Yeah. It's gonna
It
be nice
ruins
to have
it.
the choice, when we're back in the room.
Yeah, everyone will have the choice. I think that we're coming back with, like, a graduated kind of level of socially
True,
distant shows first with limited capacity and in some
true.
fashion, and let's hope the, financial aid and, economic
Yep,
aid comes through for all the venues so that they can continue to move forward, with limited capacity, which is
yeah,
not necessarily the way their business model is gonna succeed, but hopefully there'll be some supplemental income for the venues in general. And we'd spend another hour talking about that, but
absolutely.
uh anyway, thanks so much for being here, Julie. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Josh. Appreciate
Yeah,
you
thanks
having
for
me.
joining. Thanks for
Take
joining.
care.
Bye. All right, thanks to everybody for listening. That's Julia Steiner of Ratboys. I really had a great time in this interview. Julia's just so sweet and charming and speaks so well about her band, and it was really interesting to hear her perspective and that really positive attitude and kind of just attacking COVID and this quarantine from a super proactive standpoint, wanting to get out in front of the fans. What's the best way to do that? How can we maintain a little bit of momentum and maintain our sanity while we're in our basement? And they've really found ways to connect with fans. They even found ways to do really good and be philanthropic. And they did the Halloween 25-hour telethon, which was amazing. And they're really looking forward to getting back on the road. They got a can-do attitude. Such great fun energy from this band, and check out their albums and check out the videos and what they've done on YouTube and what they've done on Twitch. It's really great stuff. I want to thank Julia again for being here. And I want to thank everyone for tuning in. I encourage you all to keep in touch with Roadcase. You can follow us on the socials, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. Please feel free to email the show at info@roadcasepod with your questions, suggestions for guests, and just comments or just say hi. You can support the show at patreon.com/roadcasepod. Thanks again to Julia for being here for this interview. I'd like to thank Walzer for our magnificent theme music. I'd like to thank, again, all of you, to the listeners for tuning in, and we'll see you on down the road.